How did we get to the point where whatever Cardi, WAP, drug, Rob, B said on an IG live video wearing a bonnet in her basement, how did we get to the point where that mattered at all? What is up? My name is Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine. I am back. This, of course, is the epicenter for all of your current and captivating coastal elite chaos. So please hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, leave a comment or two, share this with a friend. Let's go. So this is a little bit of a longer video, but I absolutely love it. New York legend Rosanna Scotto, she is a gem in this one, and she always kind of gave me the vibe that she wasn't fully on board with the mainstream media narrative. And this, in comparison to local Bay Area news, is just night and day. This segment alone is light years ahead of any Bay Area news segment, perhaps better than anything any Bay Area news outlet has done in maybe the past decade. But the bar is incredibly low. And Rosanna, I think she actually sat in for Judge Janine on the 5. But either way, this I believe to be a good and fair but still friendly conversation between local Fox 5 and Mayor Eric Adams, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Chief of Staff Ingrid Lewis Martin.
Well, Mayor Eric Adams announced painful budget cuts to New York City services just last week.
Critics say the cuts will have a devastating impact on hardworking New Yorkers with a smaller police force, reduced trash pickups, and cuts to the city's pre-K programs. Mayor Adams says the budget is stretched thin by the need to care for the influx of migrants expected to cost the city $11 billion just in the next 2 years. And all of this comes amid a federal investigation into his campaign fundraising. Joining us right now, his right-hand person, Ingrid Lewis Martin, chief advisor to Mayor Adams.
Okay, so right off the bat, they mention a smaller police force, which is absolute insanity, right? Because on one hand, they, back in the summer of love, they said defund the police, and then de Blasio actually did that. Then people started defending themselves, and they started getting the book thrown at them. So it's like, you don't want the cops to protect people. You don't want people to protect themselves. But now they're not going to really have a choice, because even if they protect themselves, the same cops that you don't like, there won't even be enough of them to arrest the people. I mean, this is an absolute mess at its very best. The city quite literally needs Batman. And like I said, Rosanna is usually pretty solid, and I'm just splitting hairs here, but she says, well, critics say. I mean, who isn't a critic of this? Even Mayor Adams' little mouthpiece here, Ingrid Lewis Martin or whatever her name is, she doesn't even really like this. The most stone cold stomped down Williamsburg radical would probably still say, maybe we shouldn't be cutting everything to give it to the migrants. Maybe, I don't know. And you look at their B-roll, they're trash. There's been a trash problem. I am the #1 industry leading expert on New York City trash. There's obviously a rat problem. He hired a rat czar, which I believe they get to in the interview. The subway, parts of the subway is quite literally collapsing onto the street. And every time I mention the New York City subway, I have to mention the overtime fraud scam that happened just before Rona. It's kind of like whenever I mention San Francisco Mayor London Breed, you have to bring up the fact that she paid nearly $23,000 in ethics violations. See, I get too turned up about it. And it goes without saying, but quite obviously, all of these migrants, they show up unannounced, and now somehow, some way, it is the responsibility of New York City to foot the bill. And it does seem like a little bit of a scam, right? Because you are going to see in this interview that this woman is going to say more than a few times that we just need more money.
Nice to have you back on Good Day New York.
Great to be back, and good morning, Rome. A little bit hoarse today. How are you, Dan?
Good morning.
So, Ingrid,
Yes.
people are freaking out over the budget. And they're freaking out over many parts of the budget, including defunding the police. They're calling it a defunding the police. Even Cardi B is freaking out about crime. Now, I've been looking up the former police commissioner, Bill Bratton. He said, you're ignoring history. The last time the NYPD was reduced so drastically, it was a disaster for New York City.
Okay, so first, let me say this. Things have not changed. The issue rests with the federal government. We need help.
There you go. First thing she says. The issue lies with the federal government. We need help, which is quite clearly a call for more money. Now, do we actually think that the money is going to help those in need? Now, I would be the first to argue that the people they plan to give the money to don't deserve it anyways, right? You have a laundry list of people ahead of a whole bunch of illegals that hop the fence just to give them stuff that they started throwing away. But that's a different story. This woman, first thing out of her mouth is, it's the federal government's problem, but we also need more money. So you can blame them and ask them for cash at the very same time.
People in New York City need to understand that. They're angry with the mayor, but the anger is displaced. If the federal government would do its job, we wouldn't be in this situation. In terms of the police department, we are not getting rid of police officers. We are simply not adding any additional classes.
But you're at the lowest you've ever.
That's Democrat type of math, right? So that's what they do when the gas prices skyrocket and then they bring it down a couple cents and take the credit for it. Or when the food prices skyrocket and then it comes down a couple cents and they take credit for it. Crime skyrockets and then it goes down a tiny bit and they take credit for it. That's all they're going to do every single time.
Been in New York City.
And we have the best police department.
You say that's stretched thin.
We have the best police department in the world.
And I can't stress this enough because after watching so much Bay Area news, it's good to see a local anchor like Rosanna actually push back. And it doesn't seem like everything she's saying is on a script somewhere. She's kind of just letting her have it, in my humble opinion.
And we feel confident that the New York City Police Department will be effective in doing its job. But again, we need help. If the federal government will give us the resources that we need, then we could reinfuse the money in our budget and we wouldn't have to cut down the classes.
So let me ask you something. I understand belt tightening, but then you hear about the mayor hiring a nightlife czar, a rat czar, a gun czar, and with that comes, you know, staff that work for them. I don't know how much it costs, but we need every penny. Why make those kind of hirings and not a police officer?
The night
Totally fair point.
czar was hired before the budget cuts, but people don't realize that. These people were already in the pipeline. The rat czar was hired way before these budget cuts.
But do we need those people?
We absolutely do need those people. People are crying now about sanitation, so we need someone to understand what is necessary in order to get the rats off the streets. The nightlife czar.
Wait. So you need a rat czar to get the rats off the street, but you cut the budget from sanitation that's picking the trash up that's attracting the rats. This is the mental gymnastics.
Help us with our economy. We need somebody to help bolster the businesses and to work with.
We need a nightlife czar to make sure that the businesses are promoted. These are all scam, no-show positions that they're throwing away money on. They're filtering it through pockets of bureaucrats all over the place just to ask for more to give it to an illegal and make sure that a native, an indigenous homeless New Yorker gets nothing still.
The businesses so that when they have issues that are pending, we can push the issues forward for them and they don't have problems. So we need a nightlife czar,
And
to bring money in the economy. But again, everybody's angry at us and saying we're getting rid of services. We're not the ones really getting rid of the services. I'm stating to New Yorkers clearly that the federal government is derelict in its responsibilities. That is.
She is laying the blame quite squarely, directly on the Biden administration, clearly. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I had been pretty skeptical of the idea that Eric Adams was being targeted by the feds for pushing back on the open borders agenda, because from where I'm sitting, it didn't seem like he was doing much of anything besides, a spicy little press conference. But now with this segment here and this flunky lying the blame squarely on the Biden administration, at the same time asking for more money, and like a true Democrat politician, she is very careful to never say we need to just close the border. Even as these migrants destroy New York City, they physically attack people and they throw the middle finger. I know from experience. even as that's happening, even as she blames the federal government, even as she asks for more money, she is very careful to not say we shouldn't be, we need to close the border. That's still a bridge too far.
Where the pressure rests, and that is where it lies. We need help from the federal government. We need the executive branch to send us financial resources. We need Congress and the Senate to go to Washington, D.C. and to sit down and figure out a real strategic initiative and plan for our immigration policy. And New York City is not the only city that's faced with this, so we need help.
Ingrid, there's any number of items on the list here. The NYPD, education, libraries, sanitation, all facing these cuts. There are critics who will say, look, the city had its arms wide open for the migrants. It was a moral obligation, is what the mayor said. And they're saying you can't have it both ways, because now the city is saying, well, we can't afford this.
Fair point. I don't know who this guy is, but if he's hanging out with Rosanna, he's probably fairly solid again, you know, in comparison to the rest of the mainstream media hacks. But, of course, the bar is quite low.
Problem. How do you respond to that?
Okay, number one, we didn't have a choice. We had to accept the migrants, whether we wanted them or not. So if we have to accept them, it is our moral responsibility.
Okay, maybe she did. I don't know. I don't know the truth. They always want to make it seem like it's such a complicated thing, but I could probably pitch a couple of ideas that might walk towards a solution just a tiny bit.
Responsibility to ensure that we take care of them appropriately. We don't want to just put them on the streets. We did what was imposed upon us by the federal government's lack of doing its job. The federal government's job is to ensure that our immigration policy is in place. The federal government should have ensured that there was a full decompression strategy where migrants were filtered throughout all 50 states and not a huge influx in New York City. So we got dealt a dirty hand. The mayor is a good person. He has a good moral.
So she did kind of say the quiet part out loud there just a little bit, that, yeah, while the illegals were flooding the country, we thought you were going to spread them out evenly, not give them all to us. We need more money.
Background. So he said, you know what? If this is the hand that we're dealt with, we're going to take the high road and do it the right way.
So the solution, as you say, is the funding from the federal government. We know the mayor was in Washington, D.C., supposed to meet with some of the federal officials, maybe even the president. And that's when he came back to the city because of some developments with the investigation that's now looking at some of these potential connections with the Turkish government and the Turkish community. Is that investigation impeding now some of these efforts to get this money from the federal government?
Okay, so it is an investigation, so we're not allowed to really have a discussion about a pending investigation. We are being fully cooperative with the federal government, and I will tell you this. Mayor Adams was a police officer for 22 years. He tested and left the police department at the highest possible rank of a police captain. We believe in Mayor Adams' ability to manage the city and to move it forward.
Do you think the Biden administration is coming after the mayor because of the position that he's taken on?
I have no idea. We can't speculate on that. The only thing we know is that we need help from the Biden administration.
Okay, so again, I was fairly skeptical that they were coming after him. Of course, nothing's off the table. I would never say it's impossible that the Biden administration was coming after him, but I could be convinced. I could be convinced that they are coming after him, because we know quite well that they will not hesitate, not for 1 second, to engage in extreme lawfare against anybody who crosses them. And so with this story, this woman, lambasting the federal government and that predictable, stereotypical 30 years almost to the day misconduct allegation, and I can't stand Eric Adams. The thought of defending him in even the slightest little bit makes me totally sick. But I believe there's even a clip of one reporter making the point directly to Eric Adams that his accuser has a book on Amazon about how to successfully bring charges and win cases.
It's just something that never took place.
Mr. Mayor, there are quite a number of lawsuits filed
Hold
under the
on.
same name. A person by the same name has filed quite a number of lawsuits and has even written
a book that appears to be on sale on Amazon about how to file lawsuits and how to win. Does that make you question the credibility, separate from the fact that you're saying this never happened?
Well,
So, with that said, as much as I cannot stand Eric Adams, I could be convinced that they are coming after him now. But, you know, that's politics, right?
That's politics? Yeah. That's politics? This is wonderful. This is just wonderful. You don't think so? That's politics, bitch!
That is politics, bitch!
Sorry, pal. That's politics.
You lay with dogs, you get fleas. Is that what they say? I think that's what's going on here.
We need the federal government to do its job so that Mayor Adams can do his job.
So once again on the budget, Michael Mulgrew, who we're going to have on the show in the 8 o'clock hour, as you know, he's the head of the teachers union. He said the mayor's numbers are fabricated. That does not need to be cuts.
Okay, that's what Michael Mulgrew says, but Jad Jihad, who is our fiscal guru, who ensured that this city maintained a AA bond rating, told us that the budget does have to be cut. And he outlined to us why it needed to be cut. And it all goes back to the migrants.
Well, let me ask you something. Why do we pay the most to house the migrants? I mean, you look at what LA, does in Chicago. We're paying twice the amount to house the migrants.
Hey, what's the deal with the paying double the money for the migrants? All right, shout out Rosanna again.
Everything is more expensive in New York City, so we have to do what we need to do. The mayor, to his credit, and Jacques, to his credit, has figured out a way to do a 20% decrease in the expenditures that we're using with the migrants.
Now with sending the migrants to Floyd Bennett Field, it doesn't seem like they're very happy there, Ingrid. Some of them...
They seem happy to me.
Well, some of them got on the bus.
Came back to the city.
That was a smaller portion, man. And the bottom line is this. The federal government is making us pay to actually use Floyd Bennett Field. The governor was kind enough to offer to do the expenditures, and we need to house them somewhere. We cannot put them on the street, and Floyd Bennett Field right now is our best option.
Has anybody...
Okay, so it's also fairly ironic that the migrants are so well protected. So Rosanna brings up the point, why is New York City paying so much? And I mean, they are under lock and key. They are safer. I would argue that the migrants are safer than most regular New Yorkers. All of their little bodyguards, all of their little security guards out there are so quick to come out of their little shelter and say, you can't come in here. You can't record here.
ID? No, was...
You got your... No, I'm talking to someone. You got your ID?
No, I don't have my ID.
All right, there's a shelter. You need to have an ID.
Oh, you can't record in here, please.
Why not?
You can't record in here.
Why?
You're not allowed to record in here. He's recording. You cannot record in here.
What are you doing?
You cannot record in here, brother. Please go.
Why?
You have to get out.
Why not?
You don't belong in here.
Why?
All right, please get out.
So who belongs in here?
Not you.
Can you just talk to me? Why are you... Why are you so angry? Why are you so mad, bro?
If you took just half of that energy to the border, we wouldn't be in this mess, but here we are.
Left the system, system of New York. How many people do we have in the system, and how many have left?
That's a great question. So 142 migrants actually have come into New York.
142,000.
Yes, 142,000. And of the 142,000, over 50% have left the system. So we have now about 65,000 of them, approximately. Coupled with our indigenous homeless population, we're caring for a total of 120,000 people. The other good news is that some people received the 30 to 60-day notices, and 75% of those people did not come back into our system. So that
I mean, you know, this woman's not that bad, but like the establishment buffoonery, the hackery, the corruption is just so despicable. And to watch these people squirm like, oh, it's the federal government, we need more money. It's like, she could be doing worse, but I just don't feel sorry for any of these completely despicable human beings who time after time try to pretend that this is a super complicated issue that only the brightest among us could ever even wrap our heads around. It's disgusting.
Lens to the number that I gave it to you.
And Ingrid, there maybe is a public perception as well to what's going on, and we saw that play out with Cardi B, who made a whole long video pushing back on the mayor, saying things are out of control, and she, even though she was blaming the federal government, there is the appearance that there may be some issues with the mayor and some of the things that the proposals are. How do you push back against that public narrative that things are getting out of control?
Well, I listened to what Cardi B had to say, and I actually thank her for her insight. She actually realizes that the problem rests with the federal government. We were dumped a pile on, and the mayor, to his credit and to our team's credit, Ann Isom, one of our deputy mayors, and Camille Josie Volek, who was our chief of staff, they're handling this situation admirably. And we did the absolute best that we can. The federal government, I cannot say this enough, and we are not trying to cast aspersions, we're not trying to point fingers, we are telling the truth. We need financial resources. The governor, to her credit, has been helpful.
Yeah, she said she's going to give you some more money, right?
She can do more. Money is great, but she can also open up state. You know, we can use the space upstate. And
to bring the migrants up there.
Yes,
but she's not doing that so far.
No, and it could be an economic boom for upstate. Further, she can speak with the President of the United States and say, look, this is a state of emergency for New York City, and we need you to declare it as such. If the feds would declare New York as a state of emergency, we would get a bunch of resources that's commensurate with it. So again, people are angry with the mayor, and we understand that, but it's displaced anger. People need to understand that the federal government is completely derelict and has abdicated its responsibility to financially take care of New York City, and it's reprehensible.
Ingrid Lewis Martin, Chief Advisor to Mayor Adams, thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, well, there you have it. This woman, probably a dozen times in that interview, blames the federal government, all while asking for more money. And then she tries to say, well, you know, Governor Kathy Hochul, she's going to give us more money, but she needs to do more. We need to spread the migrants upstate further. It could be an economic boom. These people aren't even supposed to be here, and you're telling us you want us to believe that it's going to be an economic boom upstate? And if they don't want to live at Floyd Bennett Field because it's a transit desert, how do you think you're going to convince them to live upstate? The entitlement with these migrants is absolutely through the roof. They threw away some of the food that was given to them for free and rejected the shelter that was given to them for free, and then started protesting, and you just want to bend over further backwards for them. And it's also crazy, by the way, how part of this story, the end of this story, has something to do with Cardi B. How did we get to the point where whatever Cardi WAP drug Rob B said on an IG live video wearing a bonnet in her basement, how did we get to the point where that mattered at all? How did we get to the point where Cardi WAP drug Rob B became the voice of reason that politicians are supposed to be answering to? What is happening?